Hey guys, it's Destiny, and today I thought I'd discuss everything you guys need to know before Dr. Ratio releases, since he will be releasing in a few days from now. If you guys do enjoy videos like these, do make sure to subscribe and also leave a like if you guys like Dr. Ratio. Now, let's get straight into it. I wanted to start off with Dr. Ratio's kit and also some things I've noticed after playing his trial. To start off, Dr. Ratio is a 5-star imaginary hunt character, which will be the first imaginary hunt character in our imaginary roster, and also the secondary free imaginary character we will be receiving. The first was Yukong, and soon we'll be getting our free Dr. Ratio. Dr. Ratio has a single target focus as he is a hunt character, and specializes in debuffs on enemies as well as having follow-up attacks in his kit, similarly to our beloved Fire Hunt character Topaz and Numby. Dr. Ratio's skill and basic attack are pretty basic for the most part as they deal imaginary damage to one enemy, but the follow-up attacks come straight from his talent, which have a fixed chance to deal a follow-up attack on an enemy after using Dr. Ratio's skill. The initial fixed chance is only 40%, which honestly isn't the greatest, but this fixed chance will increase by 20% with each debuff on an enemy. So for a 100% chance to do this follow-up attack, you'll ideally want 3 or more debuffs on whichever enemy you're targeting. Plus, when I did play him in the trial, it also tells you above their head when you use his skill, the percentage of you actually dealing your follow-up attack. That's pretty cool. Another cool thing about Dr. Ratio's talent though is that he'll actually be able to deal his follow-up attack onto another enemy if his skill defeats whatever enemy you initially targeted. So this is just a nice bonus overall. Dr. Ratio's ultimate also involves his follow-up attacks as he'll inflict Wiseman Foley onto an enemy, which whenever an ally attacks an enemy inflicted with Wiseman Foley, Dr. Ratio will deal a follow-up attack onto that enemy, which can be used up to 2 times per ultimate, and this will be based on the talent's follow-up scaling. So this is just nice for being able to also have another way of Dr. Ratio being able to inflict his follow-up attack. His technique is my favorite part though, not because of what it does, but just the pure goofiness of him summoning one of his statues and just taunting enemies. But his technique will slow enemies for 2 turns, so this is a nice way to start the fight with a debuff inflicted onto enemies. As for his traces, this is where Dr. Ratio will punish his enemies for being unintelligent, as his first trace, Summation, will increase his crit rate by 2.5% and crit damage by 5% for each debuff an enemy has inflicted onto them when Dr. Ratio attacks them, and this can stack up to 6 times, by the way. What's really nice though about this trace is that the stacks actually accumulate based on the trial gameplay I've played so far. So let's say you gain all 6 stacks, you will be able to keep them throughout the whole fight, similarly to how Argenti's crit rate stacks work, and you'll also be able to gradually gain the stacks as well since it is stackable. So as a result, this is a very easy way for Dr. Ratio to get up to 15% additional crit rate and also 30% additional crit damage. As for his next trace, Inference, when he uses his skill, he has a 100% base chance to reduce an enemy's effect resistance. And this is just good for Dr. Ratio increasing his damage output and also being able to get summation stacks without additional help from team members. His last trace, Seduction, will allow him to get a damage increase depending on how many debuffs are currently on an enemy, as it will go into effect once an enemy has 3 or more debuffs. And for each debuff the enemy has, you'll deal 10% more damage, upwards to 50% more damage. So you'll want 5 or more debuffs ideally to take advantage of this trace's full potential. And as for his little mini traces, he'll gain an additional 28% attack, 12% crit rate, and 12.5% defense. I'm definitely a huge fan of how much crit rate he'll be able to get himself, since this makes it way easier to ensure getting crits with Dr. Ratio, and potentially being able to easily get away with a crit damage body piece, depending on how many crit rate subsets you do get on your ratio. Now though, I wanted to go over how to prepare for Dr. Ratio. For Dr. Ratio's materials, here's how much you will need if you are trying to go for level 8 traces. I've had a few people ask me to show level 8 traces and level 10, since level 10 does take a good chunk of resources. So a lot of us can only get up to level 8 comfortably. I would recommend going to level 8 if you are working on multiple characters. So let's say you wanted to build up your Sampo since he's an awesome character, of course. Then you'll want to do level 8 for both of them to split your resources up more evenly. For those who want to max out Dr. Ratio though, here's everything you guys will need. For relics and planars to farm, I would recommend the 2-piece follow-up set. Since this kit revolves around follow-up attacks the way it does, the 20% follow-up attack damage increase will be great for him. Alongside the 2-piece, I'd recommend either the imaginary set for the imaginary damage increase, musketeer for the attack increase, or even messenger for the speed increase alongside the follow-up attack increase. You could also additionally do 4-piece musketeer if you don't want to farm for additional relics, or you could do 4-piece imaginary set if you are able to imprison enemies often for the full set benefits. But if I'm going to be honest with you guys, I'm more than likely just going to go steal someone's relics to give to him and just grind out his traces primarily and potentially planar sets more, since we actually do have double planars right now. So now is definitely a great time to grind out your planar sets. For the planar sets though, I recommend Inner Salcedo for the crit rate and also more ultimate and follow-up damage, or the Glamith set for more attack and damage if your doctor ratio is pretty fast or has teammates to buff up speed. As for potential main stats, you'll be looking for a crit rate or crit damage body piece, speed or attack boots but speed preferably, imaginary damage orb, and for his rope, I'd recommend attack rope. For light cones, I'd recommend cruising the Stellar Sea for a free-to-play option, as you can get this light cone from the Herda shop. Swordplay can be a nice option for the damage increases, since he'll hit the same target numerous times, but do keep in mind the damage increases will reset once he has to swap targets. If you do have worrisome but blissful, then this could be a premium option for Doctor Ratio, and of course his signature light cone will likely be his best in slot, but I'll go over this light cone once it's officially revealed and its overall value in comparison to the other light cones. Last but not least, I wanted to go over some team synergies and concepts with Doctor Ratio, and for my first one I highly see working out is Topaz and Doctor Ratio. This has definitely been the talk of all the team comps that could potentially happen. And I could definitely agree that I could see these two being very strong together, because Topaz has a high focus as well on follow-up attack, and Proof of Debt is considered a debuff, so that will add to the debuffs that Doctor Ratio would ideally want on an enemy. And Topaz is also able to have Numby be advanced forward from Doctor Ratio's follow-up attacks as well. So you're going to basically just result in a bunch of follow-up attacks happening because of how these two can potentially synergize with one another. So this concept I think would be very good. I can possibly see Doctor Ratio and Welt being a great option. Welt can help with imprisoning enemies, so if you did want to do that 4-piece imaginary set, or you already just have the pieces left over, then that could be an option right there. Welt is also able to slow enemies down pretty consistently and also delay them, so this will also help for Doctor Ratio's want for debuffs onto enemies. Silverwolf is definitely going to be a great option as well, because Silverwolf is able to inflict numerous debuffs, so she'll easily be able to get Doctor Ratio that 50% damage increase just by how many debuffs she could do, compared with Doctor Ratio's own ability to inflict debuffs as well. There are definitely multiple options that you can have with Doctor Ratio, but if I were to just sum up a concept, it would be Doctor Ratio, one debuffer, and then a supportive character, whichever one you want to pick. And then, of course, you could do sustain as well. That I would say is a general team concept for this character. I am interested to see once we get him what kind of flexibility he really does have with comps. But once we do get him, I'll let you guys know my full review on him regarding how good I personally think he is. And I also will give you guys rotations, so basically a bit more detailed than this video. And of course, my overall thoughts on him. But that'll be all for this video on how to prepare for Doctor Ratio's release when it comes to materials, potential relics and light cones, and so on. Let me know if you guys do plan on building Doctor Ratio. And I hope you all enjoyed this video. And if you did, make sure to subscribe, hit the like button to support the video. And like always, I hope you all have a nice one. Peace.